Alrighty, so today I want to talk about dealing with an aging narcissistic parent that's in collapse. And I think it's a issue that a lot of us are facing because as the baby boomers age out, they're the largest generation in modern history. And just by that metric, there's going to be a higher concentration of people that are this way. And, my situation's interesting because, I'm in close proximity to my narcissistic mother, and I'm able to, fully observe this and watch it evolve over time. And, it's one thing when you have an aging narcissistic parent and they have supply, they have friends, they have people, but it's another thing when they're in collapse. And what I mean by being in collapse is, these people's main pursuit is energy. That's really what it boils down to. They just want to consume other people's energy and have as much energy given to them as possible. And so they set up their whole life and everything in it to have everyone serve that need. And what happens over time is that you can only treat people this way for so long before there's no one left, to abuse and to treat terribly. So what ends up happening is that their supply begins to run out, and then they enter a state of collapse. And that's when their emotions and behavior and their strategies become more erratic, because they've lived their whole life just being vampires from people, and now there's no more blood to suck. And so that's when that's when the heat gets turned up, and they're really doing a lot of outward and a big outward push to get what they need. And then on top of that, as this person is aging, they're starting to experience cognitive decline, physical decline, just health issues in general. So that's going to bring on, that's going to change their ability to regulate whatever emotions they had before. It's going to make it worse. So you'll just start seeing a lot of anger and, like I said, like outward, just like they're throwing it out there to really try to get something, to get what they need. And so in my case, this is updating in real time. So this is the latest strategy. So I'm in proximity, on the same property with my narcissistic mother, and she is in collapse. All of her friends have disappeared. There's maybe like one lady comes around consistently, who she's known for a long time. And I don't think she's really a source of supply for her. I mean, maybe in some way. But, so she's really been limited in the people she has access to. Plus, I was the main supply for, over 40 years. And moving, close to her in my adult years and, not using drugs and drinking, and having a clear mind and understanding the behavior better, I made the decision to just go no verbal contact. All communication gets handled through my dad. Whatever communication is needed. There's really very little, and so she lost me, and I was the main scapegoat supply forever. And when I first moved back there, it was insane, man. I was just such a dog on a leash, and at her if she would beckon, if I hear the call, I'd just go running to do whatever, change the tire on her car, or, fix the gutters or redo the roof, or she needed hearing aids. Let me cough up 2G for hearing aids. It's just like, yeah, it was challenging. But since I've pulled back and she's lost her main supply, she doesn't have any friends. She has my dad, which is her enabler, and she gets supply from him, but you can only you can only drain that for so long, and then it needs to rebuild so you can drain it again. So that's like her emergency backup. She has my brother, who's like the golden child, but honestly, like, he never comes around. He only comes around when they give him money, or pretty much when they have something to give him, or he needs something. And that's pretty much when he comes around. So he just does his own thing. But the initial tactic, and something you can do, is develop this observation skill, where you're observing and looking for the patterns that are emerging. Because the weakness of these people are the patterns. They just run the same pattern, the same game over and over again. And so if you can get to become observant of the patterns and try to detach emotionally and become aware of them, you can better protect yourself. So the first strategy of hers was to use visual cues and auditory cues. So she would, if she had the opportunity for me to see her, she would kind of like put on this like wounded victim body language. And then the other thing is she would run and hide. She would, I think she was just kind of, her body language was conveying a victim state. And that's been kind of her main thing, is she's a victim. Everyone has victimized her throughout her whole life. She's always been so screwed. So that's been her mantra that I've heard for years. And after that, those attempts, well, so then she does this auditory thing where she sings these like these like strange tones, and then she does this whistling, and she's always announcing herself when she's like in proximity, and I'm just like, okay, like, that's kind of strange, whatever. But that was her first attempt, and she didn't get any supply from that, because what are you going to do? I'm not going to come crawling to like give her all this energy now, because she's this perceived victim. So now it has shifted, and this has been the latest campaign over the last I guess like month or two. And so she has been hammering my dad, the enabler, and he becomes her little messenger boy. And you can always tell when it's her words. I think she just hammers him so much that it just builds and builds, and then he's like forced to like let it out, and it comes out in this terrible negative energy. And so now that energy is directed at my wife, because the narcissist figured it out, that, or in her mind, she thinks that once my wife showed up, everything changed. The supply got cut off, and my wife must be the reason why she doesn't have what she wants and what she needs. And so she's not doing the hiding and the victim body language. She still does the weird whistling and singing, but she's now gone at this like smear campaign on my wife and using the enabler as the puppet. And so he's like throwing all this negativity my wife's way, like, if it's an interaction in the driveway, it's kind of like shrugged off, or it's annoyed, or and so what ends up happening, it makes my wife feel insecure, of like, well, why don't your parents like me? Because she goes out of her way to bake cookies for them, and bread and pastries, and make soup and everything, because that's been our main thing, is keeping these guys at bay, is their whole way they receive love and affection is through material items. That's what we figured out. And you might try that. But so she really goes out of her way to be supportive and loving and helpful by giving them these gifts. And another thing too is she really keeps the kids, there's no pressure on them to, because we have children, and we live on the same property. Never once have they babysat the children. Never have we asked them to, and I don't want them to. But we keep the children, away. Like, we take them to the park. We go to places. We don't we've never leaned on them for childcare ever. And they're our only family. You know, we don't have a family support network. So all the, childcare is on us, and then whatever we can afford, we do. But with that in mind, the campaign is increasing. And so it makes my wife feel insecure and then, sad, because what she's, giving, the good energy she's giving isn't being reciprocated, and it's just negativity thrown back at her. And, and the general feeling is they don't want us around them. I think they're trying to convey that, but the problem is that, say we leave, then we're the bad guys for leaving and abandoning them, because then the story will just switch. And so there's not really any winning in that situation. But what we're doing to get ahead of it is we're just having to do this prediction and this observation and figure out, because this smear campaign against my wife will end, and there'll be something else. And so we're trying to be observant and try to get ahead of the next situation. And it is stressful and it is draining, but we're just we're in this holding position right now where we're at, and we're just saving and working, and we're gonna get out of where we're living. But for the meantime, we just have to make the best of it. And so the other thing she's doing, which I take responsibility for this, and I've immediately corrected it. So what we were having our eldest daughter, she's 6, deliver the goodies, and most of the time she just leaves the stuff at the door, and then that's it. She leaves it at the door and walks away. But lately, last couple times, she's been invited in, and the tactic with her is this heavy, excited love bombing, where she's just nuking the kid with this intense, excited love, and oh, everything's so great and I love you so much. And it's this hyper exaggerated form of showing affection. And so the result is she's there for 20 minutes receiving that energy, and then she comes home and she's all thrown off and triggered, and it makes her really agitated when she comes home. And so it happened twice this last week, and I don't get mad at her, because she gets really aggravated, and I can tell it's confusing for her. And so I just let her calm down and take the time she needs, and then just reassure her so she feels safe and secure with us in her home and her emotional environment. And then now it's no, she's not gonna be delivering the goodies over there. That's never happening again. I'll just go over there and deliver the goods, and it just is what it is. So we've learned our lesson there. But I think what we can expect, and I've been reading a lot of the comments that folks have been sharing about, they've got these narcissistic parents that are in their 80s and their 90s, and they're they're physically and mentally declining, and they're just violent, and how do you deal with that? How do you be around that? Because that'll just destroy you emotionally and physically, and the toll that carrying that weight will take on yourself is just, it's a lot. So my plan and my strategy is, and I don't know, tell me what you think. The plan and the strategy is this. Obviously, we're stuck where we're at. We're in this holding pattern. We will get out soon. I will reassure you, it's going to be okay. My brother, the golden child, and the narc have been hatching this plan. They think all the boomers with their properties, man, all the boomers think their properties are worth $1 million. And so, from their perspective, they're sitting on this property, and it's a gold mine. That's what you keep saying. It's a gold mine. It's a fucking gold mine. And I'm just like, whatever, man. You guys live in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath trailer on a few acres. Wow, that thing's worth like 200 grand. Like, give me a break. But you look on Zillow, yeah, and it's like 800 grand. So they're sitting on this perceived gold mine. And my brother has been coming over a lot, and I think the plan they're hatching is to like 86 me, you know, from any kind of inheritance of this perceived gold mine that they're sitting on, which I don't care. Like, take all the money. It's not about money for me. It's fine. So they're hatching this plan, you know, to squeeze me out, and which is okay. So what I'm going to do is like, all right, man, you guys can all have each other. And so my wife and I, there's this technique that I've learned dealing with these people, and I call it like the slow fade. It's like you just slowly fade away. You don't just like all of a sudden cut these people, because then they just go crazy. But if you just slowly fade out, you know, of their life, and then before you know it, it's no contact. And like, I'm done. I've washed my hands. It's no contact. We're set up. It's all good. So I'm just going to slowly fade, let the golden child, you know, get closer with all this money that he's going to get, and then leave them so they can just have each other. And then he can deal with her care, you know, because she's invested a lot in him, and he's invested in her. And I've tried to reason with him on the issue of the abuse, the emotional and psychological abuse, and he doesn't want to hear it. He doesn't understand that. And so that's the plan: is just do the slow fade, and then let him get his payday, and then he can deal with her, and they can just have each other. So I hope it works. I think it will. But yeah, it just takes planning and just time and energy. But, you know, I hope the situation you're in, you know, if you're dealing with a parent and, you know, you're in close proximity to them, there are some safeguards you can put in place. And obviously, no contact is the best, and that's what we all want. But sometimes it just doesn't work. But anyway, I hope this was helpful. And I'll give you a little update. I'm on a job, so I do excavation and forestry, and I'm building a driveway in this pad. My buddy's building a shipping container shop, and he bought a piece of property. It's up in the mountains. And I was running a skid steer, and I blew out the hydraulic drive belt, so the machine broke, and now I'm driving out there to fix it. So anyway, should be fun. Okay, well, I appreciate you watching. Have a good day.